What would your advice be to somebody that wants to buy their own farm in 2025?
I think the biggest thing for anyone that's looking to buy their first farm, and it's the least exciting step in this process, is to find a bank that believes in you, trusts you, understands recreational ground. Like, I was nervous as heck when I bought my first farm. I was so nervous. Like, that's what I still did for a living. I was still nervous.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Hunter's Advantage podcast. Today, I'm joined by Jake Squared. Very rare occasion that I get both of you guys on. So how's it going, Jake? You're Jake, not our Jake.
Wait, which Jake?
That's you.
Confused. All right, I'm doing great, man. Too many Jakes around here. Yeah, I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, of course.
It's a good name, okay? Literally, I think if you're, Jake Hofer, Jake Gaylord, Jake, I forget his last name from the hunting public. They're all whitetail killers in my book. So
there's a lot of Jakes.
Dude, I had 3 in my wedding. 3 Jakes out of 10 guys.
Popular name.
I know. Cubes. Exactly. That's awesome. Yeah, man. Well, it's good to reconnect with you. I've been looking at watching a bunch of your stuff, especially on the YouTube front. I was happy to see that you guys are going to keep doing a lot of that. What have you been up to on the cribs and the podcast tour front? It looks like you've been real busy.
Yeah, dude. I've had a lot of travel this summer. We're going to be doing 8 whitetail cribs this fall, and so we went down to we've never really gone south of really Kentucky, and so we went to we made 2 stops in Tennessee, and then 2 stops in Alabama, and then we're gonna round out the season of cribs with some Midwest guests, and then when you're there at their house, you might as well record a podcast. So it's been really fun, and it's been good to get back on the horse and go visit with these people. It's so awesome to see all their passion and just how they built their whole life and want to showcase it to people. I think that's so cool, and everyone was so nice on that trip. So things are good, man.
Yeah. Any ones that stick out? I saw you did Spook. You were in Bobby Worthington's place, which every time now that I see like his iconic like recliner, I'm like, oh dude, you better buckle in. This guy's about to hit you some wisdom.
Yeah, he was such a. I mean, honestly, the whole trip was so fun. Spook's crib was insane. I mean, it's just like way over the top. And we were there for a super long time because it took so long to go through all the stories and then get all the B-roll. We were there basically what felt like dark to dark, and then we went and hung out with Bobby Worthington. He is such a funny guy. I didn't know him that well, and he has a really like dry, funny sense of humor, and I really enjoyed spending the day with him. And then Michael Perry and Jimmy McRae were awesome, folks. They're friends, and they weren't too far from each other, and it was a lot of fun. I don't think I'm going to plan to go hunt Alabama anytime soon because it seems like it's really hard talking to those guys, but it was really cool.
So you talked about Bobby Worthington for a second. Is there anything that stuck out about that episode to you that you're just the key takeaway, I guess? Because I've listened to him every single episode that someone has, and every single time it's like this guy, he just seems like he knows everything about everything, and I would have to literally take out a pen and notepad just to kind of keep up.
Yeah, well, I bought his book, and I was reading it, and I was like, man, I got to bust out a highlighter. There's so much stuff I want to be able to go back and thumb. And so I bought an unhighlighted version of his book when we were there. As like, okay, this one has my chicken scratch. This other one's going to be pristine. I mean, there's so many little key pieces of wisdom. One thing that really stuck out to me that I've never really heard anyone say, and I don't think it's necessarily like a hard rule, and he's the only person I've ever heard bring this up, was when a mature buck is by itself, not in a bachelor group with similar age bucks. So picture the loner buck in the summer, picture a mature buck with 2 yearlings. Said typically they stay in a pretty tight area even throughout the fall. So, and I thought back on some of the deer that I've known over the years, and was like, that one checks out, that one checks out. And it was a key piece of information because I think that we all have to battle through summer inventory. How much does it matter? The deer may shift, all these different things, but it's like, man, if you can identify a buck that's by himself all summer, every time on camera, you can put together potentially a pretty solid plan. And I read that in his book and talked to him about it on that podcast. And I thought that was something that really stuck out to me. Beyond that, I mean, the cribs episode is going to be awesome. I think it's going to be the only time we take the raw audio of a cribs and just make a podcast, because there was so much wisdom and like so many good stories and so many awesome things. It's like, man, I would just listen to the audio version of this. So I think we're going to do that. And that's the only time that's ever really made sense. So, I mean, it was truly a pleasure to be able to spend a whole day with them.
Dude, that topic is something in the last 3 weeks about like big mature bucks being loners that I've heard 3 times. I've heard it. You just said it. I heard it from Steve Shirk and I heard Jr. and then I heard it from Johnny Stewart. And and every one of those guys has been talking about, big mature bucks, obviously not laying down as much sign, staying in a smaller condensed area. And I think about, dude, it's something that like, just like you said, when you went through those multiple steps, you're like, that buck did that buck did that. I started thinking that and my gears started turning. I think every big mature buck like that has been really similar that I can think about, especially ones that we pursued on public.
It's a huge piece of information. I mean, it's ginormous. It takes a lot of it's not that every deer is going to follow that rule. But if it's 90% and you find 9 of those or 10 of those, like it's going to work. So I found that to be just such in the world of whitetails, it's not often you hear something new or what seemingly feels original. And that hit me like a ton of bricks when I read that and then talked to him about it too.
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah, that's good stuff. I mean, you've been making content in the whitetail space for how long now? Almost a decade, probably.
Probably longer. When I was in college, I was writing for Wide Open Spaces, which was, I guess, somewhat of outdoor content. But I mean, probably, I think I started, 10-ish years. Probably could tack on another year or two. But yeah, 10-ish years, I think is probably a fair way to say that.
Yeah, I just say that because when you talk about stuff not being unoriginal, like Jake and I kind of went through this, I guess, uninspired season this last like 5-ish months, like February until June of this year. And we were like, man, there's so many things that are said in the whitetail space that are regurgitated over and over and over and over again and tried to package in different ways or put a little spin or change verbiage here. And we missed that entire month of doing podcasts because and we talked about it together on the phone and we're like, I genuinely have nothing original to say. I do not have another original thought like about whitetail that anyone could take anything away from. It was nuts.
Yeah, I get that. And I think I just regurgitated what Bobby Worthington said. So I'm guilty of that. I gave him credit. Yeah, I gave him credit.
I mean, if you're not out there 365 days a year, which I guess you could be like scouting and all that. But for the most part, people are either trying the different methods that someone else told them to do or what they've learned from someone else. And so, to be 100% original, that's kind of, I feel like the difficult part about content creation within the hunting space now. So like back when you started 10 years ago, how have you kind of seen it evolve to what it is today? And then I guess, where do you think it's going?
Yeah, I've seen it evolve a bunch. Obviously podcasts are probably the most revolutionary form of whitetail media, just given the format and storytelling. But I mean, we were, I don't want to say pioneers because I think that would be giving us too much credit.
I'll say it. You were. Okay. Yeah.
We talk, like Steve Shirk, we were the first person to ever do a podcast with him. Like you can go down the list. There was a lot of people I don't know if we were the first or second person to do a podcast with. So that was a very exciting period of time because like, oh man, you're getting to know a guy, you're getting to learn how they think. And that's where I think where it's going is either have to spin content in a different format in a new exciting format, or find people that haven't been on a podcast yet and have something to say. The problem with that is I know people like that and they're like, I'm not doing a podcast. It's like, come on. They're like, nope, yeah. I'm not doing it. It's like, please, nope. So I feel like eventually we got to crack some of these guys to share more information because I think there's so many ways to be successful when it comes to whitetail hunting. There's so many differences from out east, Midwest to where you guys are at and what may work. There may be crossovers, but I feel like there's even very regional things that may work in Illinois but might not work in Oklahoma. So I think it just, and you kind of see this with different podcasts where you have an Eastern podcast, a Southern podcast, a Midwest podcast, I guess Western Plains. Is that what you would consider yourselves at? Is that a fair description?
I would say South. Yeah, it's South. Yeah.
Yeah. So it almost seems that it's getting fragmented and it's not as much like overarching whitetail content. It just is the niches are getting deeper is my top of my mind thought.
So would you classify that as people getting more niche related? Do you think that's kind of helping build value of build value when it comes to information being shared? Or do you think it's just a little bit more noise just in a more reduced area?
That's a good question, man. I don't know. I think there's some really good podcasts. And I feel that, on the internet, it's really easy to be cynical. And I think that when you really talk to people that maybe listen to your podcast or you run into and you just start talking about deer hunting, I think people are way more positive than what it is. And I think that it's really easy to hate online and say like, oh, those guys are bozos or whatever the case may be, or that guy doesn't know what he's talking about, or I heard something about that guy. Like all these guys are taking their time to share their passion and excitement about the sport. And I feel like there's way more positive things than negative things. And if you pick up, I mean, it's just like anything, you pick up one little thing like that, you buy Bobby's book and you pick up one or two things that make a huge impact in your style of hunting. I mean, there's a lot of words in the book, but maybe there's 2 sentences that stick with you. And I think maybe podcasters, it's like a similar parallel.
It's interesting you talked about the regional stuff, because I would say the whitetail space is pretty dominated by the Midwest for obvious reasons. When you shoot a big buck, it's like,
why is that?
You're gonna listen to me. It's like
I think of that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ultimate like credibility, right? And one of the things that I had to kind of figure out on my own journey is like knowledge put into context. And when people are like, "Oh man, you got to hit them late October on those scrapes when they're laying them down," it's like, well, if you're hunting heavily pressured public ground where they're not making a lot of scrapes or there's rocky all over the place, like I would always look for things out in the woods that were not going to appear where I'm at, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think it's good in a way that stuff's getting more regional, because it's probably giving you a little bit more tangible stuff. And I think there's a big difference between like education and entertainment. It all can be entertaining. Everyone likes to hear a deer story, but it doesn't have to be educational if it's not in context to where you're at, I think.
Yeah, I would. Excuse me, I 100% agree with that. I completely agree with that. And I think even to your point, like, oh man, the first week of season, that's my best week. That's when I kill all my big deer. And that's like, well, are you in a bait state? Because that could honestly be a huge thing. And then that's usually the second part of the conversation that they don't say. Because I struggle early season. I can't hunt over bait here in Illinois. So I think that, I think that's why regional information is so impactful, because if you're learning from a guy that's been doing something really well for 30 or 40 years in your backyard, you're going to learn some stuff. It might be little small tweaks, but it will likely up your game. And the fun of hunting is to get incrementally better. Like that is the fun. It's fun to suck and get better. If you were great naturally and awesome, I don't know if the addiction and progression, like getting cheated out of that would be, I wouldn't want that personally.
I mean, I'm going to have to disagree. It ain't fun to suck. I've been sucking like the last 3 seasons, and man, I haven't found one good thing about it. So,
are you more hungry than ever this year?
I don't know. It depends. But I am. No, I am. Kind of sometimes.
Dude, another thing that I wanted to kick around with you while we're kind of in the content game is, I know I see like the word simple a lot. You see that acronym quite a bit in content now. It's like, keep it simple, right? There's a lot of like convoluted, overly complicated information out there. It seems like to me, and especially it's like consuming some of your content with the guests that you've had on, it seems like everyone who's done something impactful or killed a bunch of mature deer can distill it into like its simplest form. And I get that information. I'm like, oh, come on. Like, scout harder. That's not a good piece of information. Give me another tool or something. Do you think that's the case in all the interviews that you've done?
Yeah. And I think, well, the way you phrase that too, that's usually when you can explain a complex topic easily, that means you understand it really well. And so I think those guys understand it really well. And for someone that's brand new, it could be frustrating. Like, no, like, what does scout harder mean? Does that mean I just walk out there and walk around and look at nothing? So I think that there's a way to boil down additional information, but I think we all overcomplicate deer hunting. I think we all overcomplicate really all assets of life, honestly. And I think that there might be some clarity of just, pardon the pun, just keep it simple. Like just keep it simple. And but I think you still have to be like really excited and fired up and optimistic about it. Like I don't think keep it simple from a lazy context is the right approach, but I think keep it simple as in like don't overthink it, trust your gut, and just focus on getting better. Is how I would kind of summarize a lot of the conversations that I can think of. It's not a lot of them that are like, you're doing this completely wrong. I think it's like you're trying to do 8 different things and none of them are working, rather than like focusing on one skill set until you figure that out.
The traveling thing, part of it is very interesting to me too, because now, especially you see it in content a lot of traveling, like it validates what you're doing. If you can go do have a system and it works in 3, 4, 5 different states. The only thing that I've realized about traveling hunting for whitetails is like it just makes me suckier where I'm trying to kill a big one. Like we've tried 2 or 3 states in a year, and it's like, dude, I cannot possibly shoot 3 deer of the caliber that I want in any effective way and be not scatterbrained.
Yeah, I don't even try because I know I would be in the same boat.
Yeah. It's
also,
not
you
worth
kind of get caught in that situation, and it might have to do with social media and stuff too, where it's like, okay, if I go to Kansas, I'm trying to pull a Chris B out of my hat, right? Like if I go hunt public, that's what I want. And then you go to your first out of state hunt, and all of a sudden you see, just a nice 120, 125 walk out, in Kansas, that's a good deer. I mean, I guess for me, that's a good deer, but there you're like, should I shoot it? I'm kind of wanting to wait on that monster. And that's what me and Christian did our first time in Kansas was we had 2 probably 120s walk out, one on his spot, one on my spot. And we just decided to pass them because we wanted that Kansas giant. We wanted the full Kansas experience. And that came back and kind of bit us in the butt a little bit, but that's kind of back to the social media side of it, where it's like sometimes hunting just has to be to hunt and punch tag for the enjoyment of it instead of kind of the content side.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. I've never filmed any of my hunts to speak of, and it's just because I enjoy doing it. And then, like, as soon as every year, like, I think I'm going to film a few hunts this year. And then it gets closer. I'm like, no way. I'm going out there to have fun. I don't even want to, like, I don't even want my phone with me, to tell you the truth.
I get it.
But yeah, I think that you could spin that in a positive way in some ways, because people rag on content for like, oh, it's ruining areas, it's ruining states. But by watching that video, you guys passed deer that you probably wouldn't have if you didn't watch that video, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like content is, I don't know if this is a good pulse or not. I feel like it's changing in a sense, like you said, getting more regional, getting more specific, getting more realistic. I see a lot more of the shoot what makes you happy stuff instead of like shooting just big, mature. Yeah, dude, that message seems to be resonating a lot, because I think there's a lot of people that are like, I want to be like these Midwest icons, and they're like, this is not my experience. I just want to have fun because I get to hunt 5 days a year.
Yeah, I think that's, I don't see a problem with that. I think that people have to be real with themselves in terms of how much time they have to go, where they live, how they hunt. I just think probably self-awareness is key. I hunt a lot because I like it, and I want to get better. But I know people that they enjoy it. Maybe they think about deer hunting about September 15th. They get their bow out, they shoot it a few times, and they're like, all right, I'm ready to go. Let's see what happens.
Dialed in.
That's not me. I think about it every single day. So yeah, I think there's just a whole spectrum. I think that it's everyone aspires to be the Michael Jordan of their I guess sport, hobby, passion.
Yeah,
but we're all not going to be Michael Jordan.
What does your hunting look like nowadays? I know you're managing. I think you live on a nice piece of property that you manage for mature bucks, obviously. But what are you into these days in terms of whitetail hunting? Is it mainly on the home farm, or are you traveling a little bit in your state, or what?
Honestly, I don't hunt my home farm a ton. I hunt some ground I own, some permission ground, have a lease. So I have kind of the full spectrum. I like to have a lot of spots because I like to hunt a lot. And so I could burn out my back 40 pretty darn quickly if that was the only spot I had. So really, I would say just regionally hunt quite a bit here. I drew a late muzzleloader tag for Iowa this year, so I'll be going to Iowa for the late muzzleloader tag. But really, I'm good with like one trip a year and just hunting a bunch in Illinois. This season will probably be quite a bit different, just with hopefully less responsibilities throughout the fall, with just how my career is set up now. So I'm actually really looking forward to that. So it's pretty unexciting. I guess it's probably very relatable. I'm just a self-employed guy that hunts around my house. That's all I really do.
Hey, I'm kind of the same way. I maybe want one out of state trip and then, be able to punch my tags in Oklahoma. Cause like I mentioned before, like me punch my tags in Oklahoma, especially kind of in the mountainous areas where we hunt, that's hard. And I'm stubborn enough to where it's like, that's the only place I kind of want to punch my whitetail tags though, at least for Oklahoma. And which that takes time. That takes a lot of, not prep, but it just takes a lot of time hunting down there to get it right. I feel like, yeah, I'd be good with one out-of-state trip, but then Christian's like, hey, let's go on this, 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 and this. And
Yeah,
I'm
man,
kind
why
of like
not?
the only thing holding him back, I think, for A, marriage sake, and then B, him being home at all.
That's
So
right.
it kind of works out a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it
Christian's
balances out.
Christian's the free spirit in this
He
podcast dynamic.
Yeah.
See, I'm the balloon and Jake's the string. He holds me. I learned that at a marriage thing one day. Of like, one of you is going to be the balloon and one of you is going to be the string. I'm like, I'm not the string. So
I like
you
that.
must be the string.
I
Yeah.
assume Lauren's gone today. So
She is gone, as you know. Yeah, no, exactly. So what do you, I mean, obviously managing habitat and stuff is kind of a year-round approach, but are you able to manage habitat pretty like regularly on your lease and your permission spots, or is it mainly just your home farm that you can even manipulate?
I put most of my effort in the farms I own. I'll plant food on some other places, but my farm's come a long way since I bought it. I think this is going to be the 3rd or 4th year we've been here. So, I mean, it's so fun to go back and look at old drone photos of what it looked like when, we got the keys for the first time and what it looks like now. I mean, we've planted probably close to 4,000 or 5,000 trees, with most of those being, the far majority of those being hand planted, tubing them, establishing native season or warm season grasses, pollinators. I mean, it's been such a fun project, and the farm is getting better, holding more deer, like more. It's been really fun to learn a lot of these new things. Like, you can listen about it on the podcast, but when someone hands you the chainsaw or someone says, hey, you need to establish warm season grasses, it's like, oh, this is when they hand you the pencil when you take a test, and now you actually have to do it. It was a lot to learn, and man, I love learning all these different little tricks and all these different issues that arise from projects. And so it's been really, really enjoyable, and the place looks, I would say, completely different. And we're probably like 70 to 80% done with the heavy lifting on the projects. We have another tree planting for next spring, and the switchgrass is getting, it's chest high now. It's growing really well. And so it's been so fun to see kind of the delayed gratification of all these different projects. I have tube trees poking out of the tubes. I have some oak trees that are already probably 6 or 7 foot tall. And so it's like all these little things that you remember when you planted this little bare root and now it's 7 foot tall. Like, it sounds really cheesy, but it's actually really rewarding to go look at, like, man, I planted that tree and it's doing good. That makes me feel good.
So what did the farm lack when you first bought it? It could be a little bit of everything, but like, what was the layout, like mixed, like timber, pasture, tillable? Like, what did it look like, and where did you take it?
It had 10 acres of tillable with like pretty crappy soils, and so we put that in CRP. We planted 2.5 acres of trees. I think the remaining balance is warm season grasses. There's a windbreak screen of cedars and pines, and then an acre of food plot, clover buffer strip around that whole thing. The farm it was just an old, I don't say it's like an old cattle pasture, because it had a lot of brome grass. It had a lot of honeysuckle. And it was just like the little pockets of timber that we did have was just pure honeysuckle. And so I removed all that by hand with a chainsaw and a backpack sprayer, which was a lot of work. I would probably do a different approach in the future. And so it was just basically trimming back everything and putting good stuff in there is the easiest way to summarize it. We had a low spot that was just, brome and reed canary grass. And we were establishing pollinators there. So it's just trying to make it a true habitat oasis. When I first bought it, I was like, this has to be the best 40 acres on the face of the earth. I'll do anything. I'll cut my pinky off if it makes it the best 40 acres in the country. And then as I got into it, it's like, okay, every farm has a glass ceiling. Every farm has a potential for the neighborhood. I don't think I'm going to be able to grow and shoot Boone and Crockett deer here. I think I'll have an opportunity to kill some really good deer, but it's just the glass ceiling is not as high as what everyone dreams of when they work really hard and buy their first farm. It was actually my second farm, but everyone has these like really bright rose-colored glasses on. So it's like, okay, this farm is probably about this level of potential. How can we maximize the farm for enjoyment beyond that? And it was for me and my wife too. She likes, prairies and flowers and everything else. I was like, okay, so let's make this a complete habitat oasis and just make it great for all sorts of different critters. Like when we first bought it, there's like no turkeys. And now I have turkeys on camera almost every single day. And then cool. We never seen a pheasant. We saw a pheasant one day on camera. And it's like all these different natural responses of the work that we've done is really rewarding. And the deer hunting's getting better too. So it's kind of all like probably in elementary science class where you see the little circle of all the different critters. Like that's kind of what's starting to happen, and there's a lot more enjoyment beyond that. And that's, I think I would maybe have a slightly different approach if it was the only place I had to hunt. But it's like, I'll go out there and I'll clip some weeds and it's like, just enjoy the farm. Honestly, that's like my happy place. If I get a free afternoon or a free Saturday, I'm going to go back there and tinker as just a level of enjoyment.
Did you have mature bucks on the farm when you bought it, or was the age class kind of
It was okay. Like it's really hard for a 4-year-old to get through here. And so that's kind of, I passed a deer that I believe was 5 years old. It was the biggest deer I passed here. It was like 100, it ended up getting shot. So it was 152 inches.
So, you got ground checked.
Yeah. He was 152. And I passed that deer. Like I moved my blind. I was like, okay, I need to move my blind here. I want to put a screen here. Like I picture like mid-October, this is how all this is going to go down. And it did exactly all of that, past the deer at 30 yards. So like, that was so freaking cool. I was glad I passed him. I still would have passed him if I would have known he would have got shot. So the first time I stepped foot on my farm, if you said I was going to pass a 150 on here, I would have said absolutely not. So I'm glad you asked that question, because it has gotten better, because I never in a million years would have passed that type of deer, because I just believe that it's going to continue to get better, and get 1 or 2 deer to squeak by a year, which I think is going to happen. Everyone faces pressure. You can talk to a guy in Michigan and he's like, pressure's terrible. You can talk to a guy in Iowa, in a lot of places, like pressure's bad. So I think that I'm not complaining, because I know there's places with way more pressure, and a guy would a dream of passing a 5-year-old, like, oh my gosh, you're crazy, you're nuts. So I think a reality check there is it's getting better, and it just takes time. That's the one thing I've learned. Everything takes time. You can't magically make switchgrass grow in 1 year. Like it takes 2 or 3 years to get it established. It takes time for fruit trees to produce fruit. It takes time for your shrubs to grow where there's browse and cover. And I think that's just, I'm starting to see the very, very beginning of those rewards. Controlled burn, I'm starting to see oak trees pop up in pasture instead of them being completely smothered by cool season grasses. So it's all these small little wins that feel like they're building up.
As someone who wants to buy a farm, I'm like selfishly asking you all this stuff. So, so for the glass ceiling, right? You talk about passing a 5.5-year-old 150s. What is your perceived ceiling, I guess, and what is your hope for like a buck like that?
I think that deer probably would have got to Boone and Crockett because he really blew up from 4 to 5. So that was beautiful, clean frame, 10-pointer, stickers on both G2s, tall brows, had short beams. And I was like, this is the type of deer that I would shoot and be happy. But then the thought would always linger, what could he have been? I think it would be dependent on what the deer looks like. There's some pretty good genetics through here. And so I know if everyone worked together, I know we could get some higher quality and higher caliber deer. I think this farm's probably like a 150, 160 type farm. And I know I own another piece where that ceiling is higher. So it's just, that's probably one of the biggest things. And I talk to clients too, as an agent, be real with me. What is your goal? What are you going to be happy with hunting? And some people say like, hey man, I'd just be happy to take my kid out and see some bucks and see some does. I'm like, okay, cool. And there's other people like, I want to hunt the biggest deer the area has to offer. Like, okay, that is a very specific farm. We're going to have to be patient. And when I call you, you're going to have to be ready to go. And I think that's just having realistic expectations with yourself of like, what's going to be a level of fulfillment. And I think also too, there's a natural progression where it's like, I just want a farm. That was me. I wanted a farm. I worked really hard. I always dreamed about it. I just wanted a farm. I don't care if they tested cruise missiles on it. I don't care if that was where Lyme disease started. If it was the right price, I would buy it. And then I think you get your feet wet. You learn what you really want and what's really important. And then you go to the next one. Because I think the biggest mistake, in my opinion, or one of the biggest mistakes is you're just constantly waiting for the perfect farm. That one's not perfect enough. That one's not perfect enough. This one doesn't have this. This one doesn't have that. And then next thing you know, 7 years go by, prices double, and then everything becomes too expensive, and then you never buy anything. And so I've just always jumped feet first, probably to a fault.
Just get in the game.
Yeah.
The Hunter's Advantage podcast is brought to you by Out on a Limb Manufacturing. I used to be that guy lugging heavy gear down a steep hill after a big buck and regretting it with every single step. But now I use lightweight and dependable gear from Out on a Limb Manufacturing, and it has made a huge difference in my hunting and allows me to get to those hard to reach places. I do a lot of saddle hunting on public land throughout the fall, and a lot of those walks are 1 to 2 miles deep into the mountains. And in those situations, extra weight is not your friend. There's nothing better than walking through the woods and being able to get in any tree that you want. I've been running the Shakar sticks for a long time now, and the Ridge Runner 2.0 platform, and this past year I tried the Flatlander saddle from Out on a Limb as well, and all of that gear is extremely lightweight and comfortable. If you want to support a 100% made in America company, go to outonalimbmfg.com and use code HNTA15 for 15% off at checkout. Once again, that is code HNTA15 for 15% off at outonalimbmfg.com. We trust Out on a Limb products for run and gun hunting anywhere in the country, and we hope that you will too.
I get it. So let's say you're going to buy a farm tomorrow. How important are the neighbors in that situation? Do you kind of focus on like good neighbors, bad neighbors, or do you just kind of say, hey, I'm going to manipulate this habitat into a way that, you know, hopefully it'll deter the deer from them a little bit?
I think it depends on the budget. I think if you're buying a smaller piece, the neighborhood is a lot more important. So I'm calling a smaller piece here in Illinois, 20 to 80 acres maybe. And so I think in that scenario, the neighborhood would be very important. And I don't want to rag on anyone, but I think I would take a neighbor that will shoot anything. Like if it's brown, it's down. First, you know, they're going to shotgun hunt, and the first deer that walks by, they're going to shoot. I would take that neighbor over one that likes killing 3 and 4 year olds a lot. Because those guys are pretty effective. They really are. Like I think they're good hunters. And I think that we all get excited. Like we all get buck fever, and I've been that guy. So like I've been that neighbor is what I'm getting at. So this is not coming from a place of the negativity at all. So I think having either it's brown is down neighbor or into a pretty solid neighborhood. But in the same breath, it's always it's so caveated. Like I've grown up here my whole entire life. So I know the neighborhoods, I know the neighbors, I can kind of anticipate and pressure and everything else. So I just make sure when I'm helping someone, like this is kind of loosely what you're walking into. Things change, but this is what it's been in the past. And so if you're comfortable with that, that's what it is. If that's a deal breaker to you, we should keep looking. And so like this farm has a little bit of sentimental value because my great grandparents actually owned this, and it was actually like pretty serendipitous. Drove by with my wife one day and I was like, man, if that farm ever came up, I would really like to buy it. And then we ended up buying it like 2 weeks later. It was like a very bizarre scenario. So like when I bought this, it wasn't necessarily like I want that farm because I think it's awesome and it butts up to this awesome farm where there's really awesome deer. That wasn't the expectations going into it. So I think I'm giving you a very long-winded answer, so I'm going to loop it back to your direct question. If it were me and I was buying a really big farm, like, and really big to me is over 200 acres, I would not be opposed to buying into a quote unquote bad neighborhood if I was able to get some deer to sneak by. If I was a smaller parcel guy, I'm probably going to want to buy either an isolated piece or buy a piece in a better neighborhood is my very short answer to that after a long-winded answer.
You know, that makes sense. And you brought up a good point about the brown is down. And immediately what I thought was like, okay, that makes sense just from a standpoint of time in the woods. If he's a brown, it's down, you know, all a big buck has to make it instead of, you know, most people are worried about their target buck getting killed during the rut. Because if the core area is on you, you know, doe might drag it to the neighbors, and then boom, rifle season comes. That's a dead deer on a Facebook page, right? So if it's brown, it's down. It's like, okay, he maybe only has to, you know, make it till mid-October, and then I kind of get free reign. And so it makes sense in my eyes.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me because there's like truly neighborhoods. Like picture the nice new houses and all these different things. Like you can draw a lot of parallels in the world of whitetails and recreational land where it's like, okay, this area, like there's a lot of parallels to that. At least that's how I look at some of these farms. Like, this is the general neighborhood. Like, picture this caliber of house in this area. And that's more just an internal thought process. I don't say that to clients. There might be some sort of like fair housing law. But I think of that internally throughout my mindset of like identifying and looking at different areas. And I'm far from perfect. And I know there's people that are way more efficient at it, but that's kind of how I look at it.
It makes sense too, because it hurts a lot less when you don't have history with the deer. If somebody shoots a 2-year-old or a 1.5-year-old basket rack 6-point, you're like, awesome. That thing was born last summer, you know. But when you've been hunting them for 3 or 4 years and you're just sitting there like, I say mistakenly because hindsight's 2020, made our buddy Peyton pass like a probably upper 50s, low 60s type deer. And granted, like in that area, Southern Oklahoma, like that's a giant. I mean, that is like top end of top end besides, you know, whatever, the outliers. And he sent me a video one day, and he actually called me like 4 times. The deer was at 15 yards in front of him, and he like was texting me pictures. He's like, need to know. And I woke up to like 13 text messages that said, need to know now, all caps. And I was like, no, just pass him. He walks over during rifle season and gets shot by an outfitter's client, like across the river. And I'm like, dude, why God? That deer, that one hurt a lot more, right? Because you have years of history with them. But I think the Browns it's down might be a great neighbor situation. I never really thought about it that way.
I've put a lot of thought into it, and it's everything is so different based off what your goals and what your expectations are. But with all the tools we have, there's a lot of really good deer hunters. Like, I'm not saying there's a lot of great deer hunters, but there's a lot of really good hunters where it's like, if there's a solid deer on there, that deer's probably going to die. So that's the thought process of the brownest. There's a lot less brownest down hunters too, honestly. Like, that's almost a rarity, at least in my neck of the woods, where people are somewhat have some level of seriousness and some level of effectiveness.
Well, and what age does every buck start to get your attention? It's like 3 years old.
Yeah.
It's just enough when they run out of the woods, like, whoa, hold on. What's that? You know, but
that's some serious bonage right there.
And I've never had ground growage yet, but I've experienced plenty of ground shrinkage. And it always is on 3-year-olds when they just catch your eye with the frame running around.
Yeah, 100%.
They look different in the scope too. They're like, it looks decent.
Yeah, that's the scope is the danger zone. When you look at it through the scope, it usually dies because
everything looks big on 9 power.
That's right. That's right.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. I wanted to talk to you too. Like, obviously, pretty into trail cameras, and I saw that you guys on the whitetail side are now sponsored by Moultrie and stuff. Like, where do you land on kind of a healthy balance of running trail cams? Like, do you enjoy any of the mystery of it anymore? Are you running primarily cell cameras, SDs, or what's your kind of mix as you're hunting?
Run a mix. Last year, actually, I didn't run many cameras for obvious reasons, or they stopped sending pictures. And so I ended up shooting a buck late muzzleloader season here in Illinois. That's like the 3rd week of December. So I didn't have any trail cameras running for like 3 weeks. And I was like, man, it's cold. It's a really cold, nasty day. We have standing beans. That deer's alive. I bet you he shows up there. And it happened. I was like, that was pretty darn exciting. You know, it's like, I feel that cameras can really cloud your judgment, but I also think that there's so many different benefits. I think everyone probably goes through this progression where they become trail camera obsessed and they just let it literally steer their life. Like, not even just their hunting, but their life. And I've been there. And so I think that I've become way more relaxed. I enjoy running trail cameras. I think it's so much fun to see what's going on, keep a pulse on things. But I necessarily, and even throughout last season, like, I'm making a conscious choice to look at the cameras, but still follow my own gut instinct and intuition. Like, that sounds like very, very rah-rah and kind of non-tangible, but it's like, okay, I've ran cameras enough. I don't know everything, but it's like, I should be able to guess on what should be going on without having to have the verification of trail camera data. Obviously, it's a bonus, but I've probably strayed further away from living and dying from them, because there was a point where it's like, there's nothing on camera, I'm not going. And I'm not like that anymore. And at least I try not to be. I'm sure everyone falls in the same trail camera traps. But I do think they're so fun. Like if you like deer, they're so fun to watch and see what's going on, and just builds up in excitement and anticipation. And so I feel like if you didn't run them at all, you would really be kind of stealing some excitement. But it seems that there's this gap of true dependency of trail cameras, and I'm not running at all. And it seems like that those polar opposites are getting further apart in a lot of ways. And I probably fall somewhere closer to the middle. Like I'm going to keep running trail cameras because it's fun. And I think the whole mystery thing too, I run a lot of cameras, so I don't know how much mystery there really is, but I think if you're a guy that runs like 5 cameras, like there's still an element of mystery more than likely. But it does sometimes take a little wind out of your sails. You're like, man, I have however many cameras on this place, and I have a pretty good idea of what opportunities there are. And it's like, maybe there's a benefit to that because you leave the farm alone and you don't pressure it. And then maybe that deer, another deer gets older or more exciting, or one moves in. But I don't know. Where do you guys fall on it?
I tend to rely on or lean on the over reliance side. When like a piece of grass grows in front of my camera, I get pissed off about it because it's like 5 hours away from my house one way. Yeah. On private, man, I love them. Like I think they're awesome, especially in areas that you can stay out of and you can afford to like keep pressure off, especially when neighbors are hunting. I love them in those scenarios. Public, where we hunt, it's not even an option. So you run a bunch of SD cameras. I like that mystery because it's like those are soaking. Something's down there that I want to hunt.
You almost have to have that mystery on public. I feel like a lot of times, or else you're not going to go. But public's so hit or miss. Like for example, I think it was last year or 2 years ago. I hunted a spot and I didn't see, or I guess I seen a group of doe, but I got walked up on. And then 3 days later, Christian's uncle went in that same spot and allegedly seen like a 150 and almost got a shot at it. And so, but I think that was just due to, it being bumped around or something like that. So it's hit or miss when it comes to public land. But if you have the camera sitting there and, you check it just enough and you just kind of know like, hey, I got a picture of this one buck, this one night, and he's in this area, at least I feel like it keeps you in the game long enough where even if you don't kill that one big mature buck, it might still put you in the ball game for one a little bit lesser, but you'd still be more than happy giving it a tailgate ride.
Yeah. I think you guys learned I personally have learned a lot about different habitat types and different like just deer behavior in general from trail cameras. It's like, man, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't know. There would be a lot more mystery, and I feel like humans don't really like mystery. We all want the answers, right? We all want answers. So the unsolved mysteries. Do we really land on the moon? Like, think of the biggest conspiracies. Like, we have to know. What's the truth. And I feel like that's just human nature.
Epstein killed himself.
Right. You just got demonetized on this episode now.
No, I think it's different too in what kind of state you live in too. Like for us, when you're in bait states and you can run cell cams over feeders and stuff, it feels a little too easy in that context. If I was running cell cams on public in Kansas, I don't even know if you can do that anymore. I don't think you can.
I don't think you can.
Bad example. Cell cams somewhere else, other Midwest state on public. I don't think that there's just a singular place that you can freaking get 500 pictures a night like you would over a bait pile or something else. So I think it's different where you're hunting too. Because for me, shot a big one last year over a corn feeder, and that dude hit it like 4 nights in a row. I'm like, I wonder what he's gonna do in the morning. And I went in there and shot him and was back on public 4 hours later. And to me, I don't know, that took a little bit of the enjoyment out of it for me.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. I haven't had any deer that predictable. I wish they were sometimes, but I mean that muzzleloader buck I shot with a gun. I haven't shot a buck with a gun in a long time, and to be completely honest, I was like, man, really wish I shot him with my bow. Because he's 200 yards away, and I was sitting on the ground. Like I was so thankful and so grateful it happened. But I think that just being really honest with like what's self-fulfilling for you, like maybe not running cameras and doing it your own way is most fulfilling. Like more power to you, man. It's just an interesting thing, and they've become so much more affordable, so you can run so much more of them. And I feel like that is also another caveat. Like before, it's like I had someone would run 3 cell cameras and 15 standards, and then that has probably flip-flopped in a lot of ways. And so I just feel like the stream of data is a lot different. And then I looping back to cameras, one of the biggest trail camera mistakes I think people make is I don't know, make up a popular date like November something, and your camera just died. And you're like, oh, I got to go in there and switch the batteries. And I got to, like this one stopped sending pictures. I got to go in there and fiddle with it. I think that saves a lot of deer. Like if something happens, like it is what it is. I'm still going to stick to whatever plan, but I'm not going to go make an excuse to hunt that spot to fiddle with the camera. And I feel like a lot of people fall into that trap, or like, I'm going to hunt the spot so I can pull that SD card. That used to be me all the time. And now it's like, I'm sticking to my plan. And when I'm there, I'm there. It might be February. I don't care.
We've done that on public before. Like, hey, I don't even really like this spot, but there's a camera with an SD in it. So I'm running down there and I'm going to hunt. And you're like, that was a waste of time. I should have hunted somewhere better and then went and checked that at lunch.
Yep.
That happens. The other thing that I think about a ton with cameras is like, it's always the past, right? It's always showing you something that happened previously. And a lot of times, I think especially for mature bucks, like they might do something one time that you catch on camera that they're not going to do again tomorrow. And when you don't go hunt them because you're not had them on camera and they show up the first time, and then you try to like make a plan based on that, it's like, no, that was that time. You should have been in the tree that day. We had one on a lease for a couple years that was just probably 21 inches wide, and he'd show up one time, and it was always like, oh, go hunt him tomorrow. He was there yesterday. Never again. Yeah. Like, wouldn't see him again for 3 weeks. So it is past, right? But I think when you can marry it with, what my eyes see, what the weather's saying, that doesn't deceive me, woodsmanship, I guess. And then just the existence, or they're moving or whatever. I think you can have a pretty deadly combination, but it's easy. It's so hard to actually put those together.
Yeah, we need trail cameras with bumper guards to keep you focused. Like, don't get in the gutter. But they're so awesome. Like I said, I love them. They're so fun.
So do you take any, or I guess, do you give any credit to like historical data, or do you just kind of lean more towards like year to year things?
I think historical data, definitely. I've seen that come to fruition a lot. Actually, last year, I hunted a spot November 5th, and it was a dud sit. I was like, okay, they talk about like 48-hour window, 72-hour window. And so I was like, okay, that was the start of the 48-hour window. The next day I had to work that day. Like, crap. Okay. I told my buddy, go in there. Like, that deer's going to show up. He's like, oh, he hasn't been on camera. We don't even know if he's alive. Blah, 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 blah. I was like, go up on this ridge. And he saw him and couldn't get a shot. And then it's just like that deer showed up to the date. I would probably attribute that to more of like poor camera placement, to tell you the truth. Like, I think that deer's probably in there a lot more than what it feels like. I think that's probably like the flip-flop of the historical data and like seasonal patterns. I think sometimes they're in there a lot more, but they're only, you have a 45-degree field of view and 30 feet, 40 feet in front of it. And that's not a lot when you look at the total landscape. So I think, but I 100% believe in historical data. I've seen it happen year over year. And I could tell you a bunch of different stories. Have I been able to like truly capitalize on that yet? No, I haven't, because usually I'm pretty scatterbrained and I'm like, oh yeah, whatever. I'm gonna go somewhere else. Probably not focused enough, but I think that's such a key thing. And that's become, Don Higgins is the one that I would attribute to coming up, or like kind of popularizing that theory. And now it's almost secondhand nature to be like, oh yeah, he was here last year on this time, he's going to show up again this year. And so I definitely have seen that personally. Is that common on your guys' part of the country too? Because I think where I'm at too, there's just in the Midwest, there's a lot of changes, and I'm just not familiar with all the different changes throughout the fall. Like, we have row crops, we have increased pressure. Like, a lot of these things happen like on a calendar system where things always constantly change at around the same time.
Yeah. Oh, ours do. Yeah. Sometimes the feeder runs out and you have to go refill it. And no, what do you think, Jake?
Well, I mean, going back to the more, mountainous regions, it's like, I think it all differs. Like, you might be able to have historical data, but if you're in the hilly country, it's like you might be on a WMA or whatever, where the wildlife biologists, they have like burn cycles, and they, might select cut this or clear cut this over here, where you might have a 2-year-old clear cut and then a 3-year-old clear cut where it's like really great. You get all this new growth coming in, and then after it gets too thick, it's like you see some deer move out and then some might, move in, but for the most part, it's not really that fun to hunt anyways. And so it feels like you're almost most of the time jumped around place to place. And I feel like as a mature buck, as it gets older, it's always going to go to, the best available food source or cover. And if that's ever changing, I feel like it would almost have to be ever changing too. There's been a few instances where we've gotten bucks down where we hunt year to year, kind of like the kickstand buck, Christian.
Mhm.
We got them 3 summers in a row, but we're idiots. And so we never were able to capitalize, where, or I guess figure out where he was during the summer and then where he shifted to the fall. And we actually got a Facebook message a year or two later of a screenshot of that buck saying, hey, I listened to this podcast or I watched this video, and it was the same buck, and it was kickstand, and he sent us a pin on exactly where he shot it, and it wasn't even in the same realm of where we were. Same WMA, but not in the same area we were looking. And so that is a small sample size, yes, but that's just my personal opinion on it.
The Hunter's Advantage podcast is brought to you by Numa Outdoors. Growing up, I remember waddling around the woods looking like the Michelin Man and still freezing my butt off. But thanks to Numa Outdoors, those days are over. It's not just about staying warm. When I go out hunting, I need to know that I have gear for every single thing the woods might throw at me, whether it's heat or rain or cold. Numa Outdoors offers quality gear for every pursuit. If you're looking for quality garments backed by a lifetime warranty, make sure to go to numaoutdoors.com and use code HA20 for 20% off at checkout. Whether we're chasing whitetails here in the South or we're headed out west to get after some bugling bulls, we trust Numa Outdoors, and we hope you will too. I think in the nomadic areas, like when they, especially mountain bucks and stuff, it's freaking different. And also when you're hunting public, like none of the variables are the same. Like people walking in an area, like one dude could walk out the bedding area and you're like, dude, he was here last year. And you're like, well, he's not here now because they walked out the bedding area. So I think it's hard. I've heard Don's article. I think that one of the more popular ones is like same time, same place. I haven't seen that a bunch, but I think it's one, because we hunt nomadic deer, and then two, if a deer's got a good set of horns, he's probably getting shot. You probably ain't gonna see him again next year.
Yeah,
that's just my opinion on it.
Yeah, here in the Midwest, I would say it's definitely rings true. More times than not, I would say it rings true.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too. You guys have obviously you've been doing content a long time, and we were talking earlier about how you have to take information that is relevant to your situation where you're hunting. I'm sure I think you've done 700 plus. You've done a bunch of episodes on the podcast, so a ton.
Yeah.
How do you distill down conflicting information? Because I'm sure you've heard every single on that line.
Yeah, that's a good question, because it can be challenging. Dan, I have a pretty short-term memory, honestly, to tell you the truth.
That helps.
I would say, I don't know. I just feel like I listen to it and then I just think back like, okay, does that make sense with where I'm at in my neck of the woods? And like the other thing, like my style of hunting, like, does this apply to that? And then the other side of it too is one thing that stuck out with me was with Steve Shirk. Typically every year we do, like, he runs a bunch of cameras and he does a really good job of keeping track of daylight buck movement. So he's in Pennsylvania, big woods, completely different than where I'm at. But typically we're like a day or two of the front that hits him. And so I guess he's going through that, and we're talking about on the podcast. I'm like, okay, yeah, that, like, the weather factor, I think anyone that talks about weather, I think probably applies to most of the country. When it boils down to tactics and things of that nature, dude, it does get a little convoluted, because it's like, okay, if so-and-so is hunting this deer, this is how they would do it. If so-and-so is hunting this deer, this is how they would do it. Dude, it can just leave you sitting still, spinning your tires. And so I try not to do that, but I don't have a good answer, because I just find what applies to me and what works for me. And then I always have 2 ears open to try to pick up another, like, little tactic or something like that. But there's also a lot of overlap. There's a lot of things that everyone, I don't want to say everyone, but most people agree on, like, some key principles of hunting. And I think pressure is probably one of the easiest ones. Like, even the guys that are super, super aggressive, what do they also say? Like, you get 1 or 2 tries. And so that plays into, people that want very, very low pressure and strike at like maybe it's not mobile in the sense of like they're going and hanging a spot and hunting that way, but they're also very precise. And I think almost all of the really sharp hunters I feel like I've talked with, they're very disciplined. Whatever their form of discipline is, they're all very disciplined. And I feel like that's almost just a mindset of them, finding success is their level of discipline, and like their way works for them. And that's their method, and they're going to stick to it. So I think that's kind of how I process all that.
Like each person finds a system that works for them, and then they just like vigorously apply it to every situation that they go in. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way to say it. Like Johnny Bart, ton of respect for him. Love talking with him. Super fun. I've never bought scent lock or will never wear it. And more like from the thought of, having my scent blow in a specific area, like over a ditch in a pond or something like that. And that's my approach. But clearly, like, he believes it works and he has a lot of success. And I respect that. And I'm not here to say that it doesn't or anything like that. And then you just kind of like go down the list of each person's kind of quirk or approach. And they just believe in it wholeheartedly, and it works for them. So it's like, there's some truth to it. There has to be some truth to it. Cause like, I don't know, it's fascinating. And I've had this conversation with friends a lot. It's just like, it just leaves you more spinning your tires than anything.
Hey, confidence kills.
100%. I think discipline, I think it just boils down to discipline.
I think each individual has their own style too, like what they want out of the experience. Like some people are like, no, if I can't see the air coming out of his nostrils, I don't want to hunt him. And then there's some that's like, no, I want to shoot him at 75 yards. Like that's what gets me going. And I think everybody, even me and Jake, when we hunt together, we don't hunt exactly the same. We're not going to pick exactly the same tree or the exact same height or anything. So that's why I get, who was it? Bronson Strickland that said, never say never or always. It's like, I think that's pretty sound advice.
100%. I love him. I love talking with him.
Yeah, he's a stud. Man, another thing that we wanted to talk to you about is obviously you're in the land real estate game. Are you a broker now? Are you working for your own brokerage, or are you working for another one?
I work for a company called Land Pros. I got my license when I was a senior in college. I've been with them I've had my license for 9 years, and I've been with them for like 5 years now.
Okay. Yeah, I started 3 months ago with Midwest Land Group. So
congratulations.
Started selling some land. Yeah, man, it is really exciting. The only bad thing is I have to sell it in Texas, not Oklahoma. But no, I'm just kidding. So, and I wanted to talk to you about kind of you talked about owning a couple farms, land ownership journey. Like, if you got your license as a senior in college, like when did you actually start getting into like your own, owning your own ground?
I bought my first piece when I was 26, my second piece when I was 27, and I'm 30 now. And I bought a piece when I was 28, and I ended up selling that one. So I mean, pretty early, honestly. Like growing up, I just never even thought it was tangible to own ground. And that's why I started the land podcast, because I feel like so many people fall in that category. It's like, man, you either, really, really successful financially, or your family had a farm. And it's like, well, what about all us other folks that aren't necessarily going to fall into one of those two categories? Like, there's got to be a way to do that. And so real estate really opened up my eyes of, like regular people finding a way to buy ground. And that's where it's like, there's this huge delta of people that maybe pigeonhole themselves too much. Like, I can't afford ground. And so that's why I started the land podcast. And then that's what really fired me up. And man, I learned so much from a lot of those guests too, where I just felt like as a professional, I want to be really, really in tune with all the different, instruments and different approaches to buying ground. And I mean, you talk about variance in hunting, and their way is the right way. Like, it's the same thing when it comes to buying land. And so, yeah, I started relatively young. My goal was to save as much money possible and then buy a farm. I wasn't waiting for the perfect farm. I bought the first farm I could afford, basically. And then I still own that one right now. And it's been great. And obviously, hindsight's 2020. Like, I did buy that piece. Land was going up. But I would have never, I cleaned my office the other day, and I found like a sheet of like, this is how much I think it's going to be worth in 25, 26. And it's like way past that. So it's been interesting.
So what would your advice be to somebody that wants to buy their own farm in 2025? I mean, it's hard. It'd be hard to distill all the information that you had from the land podcast on here, but like a few of the things, like consideration of first time buyer, not a huge amount of, free cash to throw down on something. Interest rates are high. Like what's some general things that you'd recommend?
I think the biggest thing for anyone that's looking to buy their first farm, and it's the least exciting step in this process, is to find a bank that believes in you, trusts you, understands recreational ground. I think that is the biggest thing, because a lot of times when a small piece comes up and it's good and that's what you're trying to buy your first farm, they typically go pretty quickly. And so you got to have like your license to hunt. You got to have your pre-approval letter and know where you're at from a financial standpoint. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. The other thing is establishing your own budget. And I think like I was nervous as heck when I bought my first farm. I was so nervous. Like that's what I still did for a living. I was still nervous. And so like I get the nervousness that gets that people get when it comes to buying them. Every time I bought a farm, I've been nervous as heck. And then like 2 months later, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. And the longer time goes, the more thankful I am that I did it. And I feel like when I talk to clients, a year or two later, they're like, oh, I'm so glad I bought this. So I think that's the biggest thing, is figure out your finances and then be ready to jump. And if you make a mistake, just sell it and like make it as good as you can and move on to the next one and take it as a lesson that you learned. And it's not as complicated and it's not as intimidating as maybe what it seems like. And that was even to me. Like I remember when I bought my first farm, small little bank, had to come up 30% down, which is a lot. And it was like 2 papers. Like I had to fill out 2 papers with the bank. And like, yeah, you're good. And so I think that's just, we build up all this uncertainty. We build up all these like what ifs and all these different things. I've been self-employed basically since I graduated college. So like, I feel with being self-employed, like I'm probably even more nervous of like, man, what's my income going to be next year? What's my income going to be next year? And like, so super nervous. It's like, well, I've been continuing to work hard and things continue to get better. And I like a little pressure too. So that's another way to do it. So
payments coming.
Yeah, you better figure it out, brother. So I think.
So we had some technical difficulties, but what I was trying to say was that I think that a lot of guys just need to get permission for themselves to make the decision that they really want to do. It's like they almost have to verify, like, okay, is this a fair deal? Not even that it's a good deal. Is this a fair deal? Is it a good decision? And like even, I mean, I fell into that same boat. Like, like, gosh, that seems like a lot. I don't know. But people just got to give themselves permission. If they've done all the other due diligence, like they can afford it, they figured out the financing, it's something that they want, it's something that's good for their family, it's something they're going to enjoy, something like it checks off enough boxes for them, and then I say full send. That's my opinion for the first time land buyers. And I think that I personally have been rewarded in a lot of ways, in the sense of by getting into the market and buying a good enough farm. Like that's, to get to a big farm, you got to start with something.
Yeah, ride the appreciation up a little bit and upgrade over time.
And just enjoy it too. That's the biggest thing. Like I don't, it's a great investment, but it's like one of the most unique investments, from the sense of like you can get so much satisfaction, enjoyment, family time. And to me, those intangibles are worth a ton for me personally.
Well, I need Jake to get his own farm. That way I can hunt and not have to pay for a lease.
There you go.
Yeah. See, listen, the way my bank account's set up right now, we're just gonna leave it at that. But no, just so you ain't got to hold your phone for the next 30 minutes. Something that I do want to ask, just because hunting season is right around the corner, it feels like. Social media, I guess, just put it bluntly, makes things look either way too easy or way too hard in a sense. And what is that one encounter or shot opportunity that you've had that it just kind of blew up in your face? And we call it close but no cigar. But the reason I ask these is just because, for that first time guy getting into hunting or whatever, YouTube makes it way too easy, where it's like, I'm going to go out in the woods, I want to shoot a big giant buck. That's just not the case. So what's your close but no cigar?
I got a bunch of them. I got a lot of close but no cigars. I mean, I've had this happen twice, where there's a buck you're after and he's on the wrong side of the fence, and I didn't shoot. And one of them it was a really, really, really awesome deer, and I have so much thankfulness that I did not make the wrong decision in that scenario. So like that's an example of not necessarily like close but no cigar. It's just like a I feel like if you hunt long enough, you're going to be facing an ethical dilemma, and I feel like people can get caught up and make mistakes. And that was a scenario where I'm really glad I didn't do that. Um, another example, I mean, there was one year where I try to be very optimistic, very positive. Like I make a conscious decision to do that. There was one season where I was so pessimistic. Everything that went wrong was just the end of the world, and I'm not. I missed 2 bucks in 2 back-to-back sits.
Mm.
One of them was this. So it was the rut. Awesome spot. One of my favorite like places to be during the rut. There's just a lot of activity, a lot of cruising, and it's like, man, it's a hot seat. You never know what's going to happen. And so I was struggling nonstop. I had an encounter. It would have been a tough shot. I didn't shoot. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go to this spot. And then I was hunting out of a saddle for the very first time, and I've gotten a lot more comfortable with that, but dude, I should have practiced way more times. And I'm on the like it would have been a weak side shot. The deer's cruising through. I pull back. He's moving, and I didn't even shoot that time. So if I was in a stand, I would have shot him because I would have been more prepared. So I count that as a miss because that was a missed opportunity. The next day, another really good deer. Nothing giant, but like mind you, mental space is not good. Like I'm struggling. I got to shoot a buck. Like
Yeah.
that was the stage of hunting where I was like, I have to shoot a buck. Have to. Doesn't matter. I have to shoot a buck. And here comes this heavy 8-pointer coming through, and I draw back. I feel awesome about it, and I'm like, okay, here we go. Whack, smack a tree branch, shot right through a tree branch. And the deer goes off. I was like, oh, I smoked him. Like that felt so good. And I look like, oh, my arrow is sitting on the ground and it's not, there's no blood on him. And I look back and it's like there was one branch that I didn't see, like the trajectory of the flight of the arrow. I knocked it and I was like, okay, this was actually a very good lesson to stay grounded and don't get too rammy and too negative. Because once you get into a negative rut during deer season when things are going right, you just keep burying yourself in quicksand. And like I've had other mess ups or like other screw ups, and it's like, hey, I got an opportunity this time. Maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I didn't make it happen, or like something silly happened. It took me 7 days of hard work to do that, and guess what? I get to do 7 more hard days of work to try to figure this out. And I say hard work loosely, but it's like a lot of effort goes into it, and it's like, hey, I just got to keep working until I get my next opportunity. And I think that's my. I've messed up so many times. Like I've made some really good opportunities, and I've messed up just as many times. It feels like.
So the real question: how big was the one sitting over the other side of the fence?
I don't know if it would have started with a 2, but it would have been close.
Shut your mouth.
I swear.
See, my luck, I would have shot it, and then it would have like moved robotically, like one of those decoys. You're like, nice.
Yeah. We got him. We got him. Put your hands up.
Yeah, dude. No, because I asked that because everybody's ethic. It seems like most people's ethics have a number, right? It's like, oh, I would never poach a deer unless it's 200. You know,
Yeah.
so that's
He would have been
that's
really close.
wild.
I would have like guessed like 198 to 202 that year. He ended up getting shot the next year, and he went downhill.
Man.
But that deer was crazy. That deer was super super nomadic, and it was during gun season, and I'm like, okay, I know he's in the general area. And then there was a group of does like meandering through, and I was like, in my self thought, like, wouldn't it be crazy if that deer was at the back of that group? And he was.
Mm.
And I'm like, instantly started like the worst case of buck fever I've ever had in my entire life. Like basically borderline having convulsion. And the deer's like, I really thought he was gonna go where he needed to, and he didn't. And I'm like, okay, tonight when they come out to feed, this was like at a weird time too. This is like 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning. It's like, okay, when the does come out to feed tonight, he's gonna be in that group and it's gonna go down. Never happened. Never had
Yeah.
another
You're a better
opportunity.
man than a lot of people, especially around here. Because man, if it even started with a 1 in there, it's like maybe 140. It's like most people's taking that shot, dude.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean
kudos to you.
that's the biggest deer I've ever had an opportunity at. And so hopefully the deer gods reward me for being making the ethical decision, but I'm not looking forward to balance out. It was a super cool encounter. It was one of the coolest encounters
Yeah.
to see that deer on the hoof.
Yeah.
Just tell you a little story how it is around here. So I have a piece of family land that I hunt. It's my grandma's, and there's this one guy, I think his name's Pockets or Patches that people call him around here.
Yeah.
Patches. Well, I've hunted that piece of property for 2017 or since 2017. And this was, I think, 3 years ago. So I've been hunting it for 3 years. I've seen him multiple times. He sits right on the fence line, like literally overlooking this little pecan orchard or pecan grove that they got planted out there. And one evening I there was like a group of doe or something, and I was back in this thicket, and of course it gets darker in the thicket quicker than it does out in the middle of this hay meadow. And so I kind of get out a little early, and I start walking back to the truck. Well, I had the same route in and out. Like there's not a very big property, so that's just this case. I go to this neighbor's fence line and then walk immediately to the road. Well, as I'm walking kind of towards this fence line, I see a headlamp come on, and I'm like, "Oh, dadgummit!" And then all of a sudden, there's a bow or a doe that kind of ran off a little bit in front of me. And at this point, like it's probably past legal light, but it ain't dark, and I just didn't want to make anyone mad, so I kind of flicked on my headlamp too after he did, and I walked up to his tree, and I'm like, "I'm so sorry. Did not mean to bump that deer. He was probably waiting on it to jump the fence or whatever." And he was like, "Oh no," he said. He's still in his tree, about 8 foot up. He goes, "Look about where you are and see if you can't find an arrow." And I was like, at first I thought he was kidding, and I was just kind of, "Oh yeah, haha." And he was like, "No, I'm serious. About 3 feet to your right, see if there's a bloody arrow." And sure enough, I'm looking. About 5 minutes of looking, he finally gets down to the base of his tree. I find the arrow clean as a whistle, and he's like, "Oh damn," he said, that's the 7th one this year that I did that on." And mind you, this is like October 14th or 15th. And I'm like, okay, this dude shot a good handful of deer on my side of the fence, and it's only 2 weeks in the season. I'm like, I love this.
That's
so
brutal.
some people just have no shame, but my hat's off to you.
That's brutal. That's I'm sorry for laughing because that sounds absolutely brutal.
That's all you can do is laugh. But no, I just thought it was funny. But
yeah, that's awesome. Well, Jake, we appreciate you doing this, man. It was good to catch up with you. Good to talk with you. Pick your brain. Where's the best place for people to connect with you and watch some of your content?
Yeah, I would say WHTL Whitetail on YouTube is the best place to catch all the video versions of the podcast. If you're interested in land, the Land Podcast is a great place to learn from other first-time land buyers and other land experts that have a bunch of experience. And on Instagram, I'm Jake Hofer. Don't post very much, but that's a good way to get a hold of me. Thank you guys for having me on here. I'm so sorry for all of the technical difficulties. I try not to. You guys were dealt a crap sandwich with the technology here today, and so was I, because I need to get my internet working again.
Yeah, no, you're good, man. Well, we appreciate it anyways.